In the screencast, I will demonstrate a very early version of a development environment that allows you to experiment with webVR and 3GS. So when you open up this URL, you start that workspace. That workspace is structured as follows. On the left side, you have 3D rendering and a few controls that allow you to interact with it. So the run and the stop button basically are just there for like restarting what you see at the top. The full screen button puts the rendering into full screen mode, and if you have a head-mounted display attached, it will also probably use that display to render things. So right now I have Oculus Rift attached to my computer, and when I move it around, you see that the input of the Oculus Rift affects the rendering in a proper manner. You can press escape to exit. I will talk about the workspace button in a second. The list on the right here is a scene selection. We have a couple of scenes here already. For example, this one. This is can also be controlled using the Oculus Rift. And the text at the bottom can be used to output debug information for the scene that you are rendering here. You can add new scenes using the plus button and remove existing scenes using the minus button. If I add a new scene, you can give it a name, press OK, and it will start out with basically just a box and black background. To explore how the scene was built and to change it, you can open up a workspace. When you click on that workspace button. The text on the right shows the code that was used to produce the rendering here. The text is not static or that. What you can do is you can go in here and you can explore the objects that are in the scene. So for example, the box that is rendered is actually assigned to that variable box over here. So when I type box and I press inspect, so Command I on my computer, I get basically the attributes listed of that object here, showing me how that object looks like. The shortcuts that I'm using, by the way, you can most of them find in the right-click menu over here. So when you do it or print it, what happens is that you evaluate a snippet of source code, either the line when you don't have a selection or the currently selected text. So if I would want to change the color of that object, for example, then I can get a list of all the attributes again in a completion window. I press Command-Shift-P for that. I can type in that list to filter the items. I want to access the material object. I press enter to accept the completion. The material I think has a color attribute, and I can see color attribute has a set method, and this is what I call. So I set the color, for example, to blue. Then when I select the expression and press Command D to evaluate it, the change that I made over here gets directly and interactively applied to the left side. The codes that you see below here, initialize and animate, these are two functions that are expected by the object to the left to be defined in that code. Initialize gets called once when we start up the scene and create the renderer and the objects displayed in the scene, as well as lighting and these kind of things. And animate gets called continuously to change the objects in the scene or to modify it in a certain way. To see a list of all the state that is currently defined, and a short and printed version, you can click on the Show Vars button on the right side. Show Vars just shows you the objects, and when you click, for example, on an object, so on a variable defined in that list, you will see where it was actually defined. And for example, click on initialize, I see, okay, here's the initialize method. This is useful when your code gets a little bit longer, like let's say inside the WIF demo we have a lot of code. Then this allows you to quickly jump around in the code. So for example, if I want to go to the build controls function, I can just click on it, and here I am. So in this manner you can interactively explore and experiment with the programmatic objects that are in that scene. Everything that you see in this web page here can be saved. So all you need to do is basically just to save that world. World is the name we are using for this web page. For example, if I want to save my new blue, I should actually make it blue from the start. Blue. By the way, when I type in here and press Command S, the entire scene gets re-rendered. So Command S for save and accept the entire changes. So when I want to save my blue new box, then all I need to do is I right click in the gray background and I say either save world or save world as. I'm using save world as now, just to show that I can actually make multiple copies of this web page. So this is like my test webVR page VR, and when I accept that, then what happens is that a snapshot of all the state here is created and saved as a new web page. When I open up that web page in another tab, then my object, my blue object that I've created, gets reloaded in here, and all the code that I've used to modify it is still there. This way you can create your own workspaces and experiment with the stuff.